Chapter 1. Years later, Pip had finally grown into a larger elf. However, he had not grown as big as he should have been. He was still small compared to the other children in the orphanage. He still had no idea who his real parents were, or how he'd gotten to the orphanage in the first place. He knew nothing about his past, nothing about being abandoned by the river, or Temple, or Gormon. He knew nothing about the scar on his ear, or the loneliness he sometimes felt, longing for someone he didn't even remember. Sometimes things would come to him in fuzzy flashes, memories of a butterscotch-colored horse, or being held by a very old man, or sleeping in a basket in the cold. Life in the orphanage wasn't much better. He was bullied often. Their favorite way to torment him was to throw him in mud. Food was hard to come by, as was a comfortable bed. Pip eventually learned that begging or stealing wouldn't be the way to go. His back would be whipped, and he'd be left alone in the basement with a few rats that were better friends than the other children ever were. Sometimes, when he was allowed to, he would draw pictures, attempting to recreate his memories. These often depicted rain, or a grainy image of a young warrior elf, or butterscotch horses, or a very old man in a room full of art. But no matter how much he tried, he couldn't remember his past, or who any of these people were. One day, after being banished to the basement for sneaking extra food, he sat near the large bin of coal, where he looked over and saw something on the floor. It was a leather-bound notebook. He picked it up, seeing a name scrawled across it. Temple. He took hold of the corner of the cover and opened it. Inside, he saw several drawings. A boy, sitting inside the confines of what looked like a dungeon. An image of what appeared to be the village elder, with the name Garmon scrawled on the bottom. For some reason, the name seemed familiar, but he couldn't tell why. He turned another page, noticing a picture of a horse, labeled with the name Skip. Another picture of a tiny baby elf with the name Pip written below it. Pip tilted his head. Was this supposed to be him? And when he turned the next page, his eyes widened to the size of saucers. It was a letter addressed to him. He read through it, eyes scanning the page. Dear Pip, how's it going? You probably don't remember me. My name's Temple. I'm the strongest of Garmon's warriors. He's one of the village elders. There's something you should know. I was the one that found you. Your parents were nowhere to be found. You were just laying there, in your cradle, completely helpless. I couldn't leave you there, so I brought you to Garmon. He didn't want to keep you, even though I begged him to. So I brought you to this godforsaken place. I know this isn't what's best for you, but I had no choice. All I want is for you to forgive me. Signed, Temple. Pip couldn't believe it. These visions, these memories, these flashes in his mind, they finally made sense. It all made sense. He knew where he came from, and who had saved him all those years ago. He knew what he had to do now. Grasping hold of the letter, he gently, delicately tore it out of the notebook. If and when he got out of the basement, he would find the writer of the letter. Then a thought came to his mind. What if I broke out? He turned to look around. There was a small, grimy window, letting in a thin stream of light onto the stone floor. A mischievous smile crossed his face as he approached it. Taking a piece of black coal in his hand, he threw his arm back and threw it as hard as he could toward the window. The sound of shattering glass hitting the floor rang through the basement. He heard a faint voice. What was that? Mrs. Damocles, the meanest attendant of them all. Her specialty was punishing the children, so he knew he had to escape as quickly as possible. Heavy footsteps thundered down the stairs. He had only a few seconds left. He leapt onto a barrel, the wood shaking as he stood on it. He grasped the windowsill with tiny hands just as the door burst open, revealing a very angry, plump, short elf. Her face was as red as a tomato. She charged toward Pip's tiny form just as he crawled out of the window, landing with a thud onto the grass. He ran his hand through the green threads, sighing in relief. It felt like ages since he'd gone outside the orphanage. A sinking feeling suddenly emerged in his stomach. They'll come looking for me, he thought. As he got to his feet, dusting off the dirt, he realized that he would have to run and hide if he didn't want to get caught. But where exactly was the million-dollar question? Maybe I should just... He was cut off by an angry yell. As he turned to look, his blood froze in his veins. Mrs. Damocles was there, bounding toward him like an angry bull. He began to run, knowing he couldn't get caught. His tiny feet hit the ground as the large woman thundered toward him. At last, something became visible up ahead. A wooden structure, painted red. Horses stood inside fenced-in pens, chewing hay and flicking their tails. A few stable elves were shoveling manure, stacking hay bales, their faces sticky and hot from the sun beating down on them. With all the strength and willpower he had left, he abruptly skidded against the hay-ridden ground, sliding right underneath the gate, ducking into a pile of hay. He heard Mrs. Damocles grunt in anger as she glanced around the stall, not seeing anything. Once her pounding steps were out of earshot, Pip slowly poked his head out from the pile of hay, sighing in relief. He glanced up, seeing a butterscotch-colored horse. It was at least twice as big as him, with a glorious white mane and rugged black hooves. His eyes sparkled with admiration as he approached it. The horse glanced down at him and gave him a gentle whinny. Pip giggled as it sniffed him, even chewing on a little of his hair. He heard footsteps again, but before he could run, he looked to see one of the stable boys. "Hey!" he called to someone not visible from the stall. "There's someone in Skip's stall!" So the horse's name was Skip. He hid behind Skip's leg in fright. Then a tall elf with a blue tunic and dirty blonde hair looked in the stall, noticed a pair of long, pointy, slightly droopy ears poking out from behind the horse's front leg. "Oh my God," he mumbled, a slight tremble in his voice. "What is it?" the other voice asked. The blue-clad elf knelt down in front of Skip's leg. "Hey, it's okay. Come on out." Pip poked his head out, taking shaky, hesitant steps toward him. The elf's eyes widened. "Pip?" he asked. Pip tilted his head in confusion. "How do you know my name?" he asked, more curious than scared. He smiled. "You don't remember me?" Pip shook his head, ears flopping a little. He smiled again, tears coming to his eyes. "That's okay." He threw his arms around the child and hugged him tightly. Pip, confused, asked, "Who are you?" He chuckled. "It's me, Pip. Temple." Hi everyone, it's TavyGamer404 here. That was... Actually, the last one was the prologue. This was chapter 1 of The Legend of Pip. I hope you enjoyed it. We're really going to get into the lore of Pip in chapter 3, which should be up sometime next week. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, comment, and subscribe. All the other YouTube things to boost us in the algorithm, because the last one is not doing so well. Anyways, TavyGamer404 out. Peace.